couple of days ago, I was watching a movie called A Good Year. Now, this movie tells the story of Max, an investment banker who, uh, who has to move to the south of France to deal with his uncle's passing and to process the inheritance. Now, in doing so, many events unfold, compelling him to reorganize his priorities. Now, this movie is generally quite unremarkable, so it makes me wonder why I spent 2 hours of my life watching it. But anyways, it does one thing very well. It shows us that man is not quite different from a dog. Now, allow me to explain this statement. People have quite a fixed image of a dog in their minds. A dog will keep running around itself, trying to catch its own tail. Now, in doing so, a dog will fill itself with a sense of fulfillment, sense of purpose, and a sense of joy. And a dog will actually formulate an action plan, trying to catch and achieve the potential that it has convinced itself it has, trying to catch its own tail. But in doing so, a dog has forgone the original purpose, the original goal of giving itself a sense of fulfillment and joy, and forgone it in order to actually catch its own tail, which, as most of us know, is biologically unattainable. So, allow me to take this to us, humans. Now, we don't physically run around ourselves trying to catch our own tail, but I imagine if we had tails, we would. But instead, what we do is we manufacture tails through our society and through our jobs and through everything that we do in everyday life. People will forgo their original goal of having fun, of enjoying life, of watching the sunset and the sunrise, of enjoying the breeze, of taking a moment for themselves, in order to toil and work and give everything that they have to their job and to everything that gives them pressure and to the expectations that others put on them and that they put on themselves. So a perfect example of that would be when a person wants to buy a house on a beach. So a person would work and actually buy the house. But instead of actually sitting and enjoying the view, a person would continue on working, simply because the goal has changed. The goal has changed from owning a house to having economic stability to many, many other things. And in doing so, we manage to put our own expectations and the expectations of others upon ourselves, which leads to a higher stress level and could lead to many psychological disorders. One such psychological disorder, or a symptom of one such psychological disorder, are manic episodes. So in a manic episode, you feel like you can high-five a million angels. You can do everything. So for some benevolent reason, you feel like you want to do your psychology essay, which you've been putting off for a month, your English essay, although you know the deadline has passed, and you're probably also doing your physics essay, although you know the teacher will probably kill you. And in doing so, people subject themselves to more pressure. Because when people are actually experiencing a manic episode, they will over-engage in goal-directed activities, like I mentioned before. They will be overly euphoric, they will be overly optimistic, they'll be talking a lot, and they'll be quite irritable, actually. So, how many people actually experience what I refer to as a manic episode, what the psychological community refers to as a manic episode? Well, the numbers are actually quite shocking, because 4.4% of Americans have experienced one such episode. Now, I know that 4.4% seems like a lame statistic, but when you consider the fact that that means 14.3 million Americans, that's a lot. And when you consider the fact that that's in quite an economically stable society with a high social safety net, that's quite a high number, because the number will rise quite a bit when we translate it to our own society. And these numbers don't just apply to adults. They apply to teenagers and adolescents also. Even teenagers and adolescents feel the pressure and the expectations that people put on them and that they put on themselves. And actually, there's been a 63% increase in the number of the adolescents who have experienced the manic episode since the year of 2013, which leads many of the people in my generation, in our generation, to feel like we have aged beyond our years, like we are carrying everything and the weight of the world on our shoulders, like we are doing too much. Which reminded me of a poem I had written quite a while ago. Aged by time is what we are, and only we can age ourselves, and that we have gladly done. Through the years of choice we must make, and the air of grievances we must bear, through which we have aged ourselves. Society has aged us with its non-ending you musts and you haves. Parents have aged us with their, it's your choice, but for your own good. Choices have aged us with their, you can choose from. But no matter what you choose doom to one of your choices. You choose doom to one of your hopes, or close to one of your prospects. We are those who have been aged by the choices that should make our lives easier. I am he who has lost his battle against time. aged by what we must do but can't, capped by a cork of expectations. Now, this is the absolute extreme of what our goal-centered lives have led to, of what our painstakingly high stress level activities have gotten us to. But, like any good medium, there is another end, a more procrastinator-friendly end, a more soothing end, an end that probably most of us will actually want to be on, and that end being cynicism. Now, the founder of this philosophy was not actually me, although I'd do anything for it to be me, but its founder was actually blessed with such a name that you will probably wish it were me. His name was Diogenes. And this philosopher proposed a very simple idea, that all people live in order to achieve happiness. Now that's quite simple, right? But cynicism did not just lay an abstract foundation for a philosophy, but it rather gave us an actual opportunity to live a life of happiness. The idea is that for a person to actually live a life of happiness, they must lead a life of virtue. And in order for a person to lead a life of virtue, they must first off give up all material influences, such as wealth and influence. And in addition to that, a person must also be ready to face, to wither the repercussions of his own actions, and to be content with little. And on the other hand, cynicism actually detailed what we as a society must be able to do. The idea is that you can't just give an object a value that goes beyond its practicality. You can't just give an object a random price that goes way beyond its practicality. Now, a perfect example of that would be diamonds. So, diamonds actually are perceived by most people to be the most common, to be the most rare gemstone in the world. However, in reality, diamonds, relative to other gemstones, are the most common. In most countries, you will actually find storehouses that are filled to the brim with diamonds. But their owners won't simply bombard the market with them because the price will crash, which results in there being necklaces and earrings that are worth millions and millions of pounds, which would create a feeling of social uneasiness between the different socioeconomic classes, resulting in an unharmonious society that simply won't be able to function. And that is why cynicism preached to not give an object a value that goes way beyond its practicality, such as diamonds. Now, cynicism didn't. Now, due to these many shocking ideals, cynics who actually believed in cynicism were ridiculed out of the ancient Greek society. They were mocked, they were made fun of. And actually, the term cynic is derived from the ancient Greek term kunikos, which actually means dog-like. But even though that, cynicism blossomed into one of the most important and complex philosophies of ancient Greece. In fact, some of the people who subscribed to that ideology, some of the most known and famous cynics, one of them was actually the person who gave most of us nightmares in middle school, Pythagoras. And another example of that, a more famous example of that, and a more extreme example of that, would be Diogenes of Sinope. Diogenes of Sinope took cynicism to the absolute extreme. He ate raw meat, lived bare, and basically lived in a tub on the streets of Athens. Now, in doing so, Diogenes actually became quite famous. And in this picture, we can see Diogenes simply lying on the ground and talking to the first conqueror of Egypt, one of the greatest emperors who ever lived, Alexander the Great. And in doing so, he is clearly displaying what it means to be a cynic, because you don't believe that having wealth and influence, such as what Alexander had, gives you or entitles you to be a better person, or to be another person, or to be another type of person. The simple idea is that we are all living for happiness, and we are all people. And another famous interaction that Diogenes had was actually with another philosopher called Aristippus. And they were both in Dionysius' court. Now, Dionysius was the Greek god of wine, for those of you who don't know. And so Aristippus is talking to Diogenes, and so he basically tells him, if you would only learn to compliment Dionysius, you would not have to be eating lentils. And so Diogenes responds with a seemingly simple response that is, in all actuality, an embodiment of what cynicism stands for. He says, but if you would only learn to enjoy lentils, you would not have to compliment Dionysius. In doing so, Diogenes shows us that the difference between having lentils on your table and meat on your table is not quite. The idea is that you should not be fighting to be blatantly wealthy or blatantly rich or blatantly powerful, but to simply be happy, to enjoy life, to be content with what you have. So how does this actually relate to real life? How does this relate to our everyday life, to what we do every day? Well, regretfully, we can't simply just excuse ourselves from the modern spider web that is our society. Sorry, I'm leaving now to go live in a tub on Tower Street afraid it doesn't work that way. The idea is that we must employ cynicism on our view in our view on the world. We must see how our actions impact others. We must give ourselves a chance to enjoy the world, to enjoy the underlying beauty in everyday life, to watch the sunset and the sunrise, to procrastinate a bit, to enjoy our life. So in conclusion, go on living your lives, fun, procrastinate a bit, and don't be afraid to give yourself a break once in a while, to enjoy the world, to watch the sunset and the sunrise, to watch the breeze. Thank you.